Why does Madara come back blind and without eyes? When Black Zetsu forces Obito to revive Madara using the Rinne Tensei, Madara's Rinnegan turns into dust and disappears, rendering Madara blind. It gives her some really cool fight scenes where Madara is stomping everybody with no eyes, which, don't get me wrong, I love, but why doesn't he have his real Rinnegan in his sockets? To answer this question, we're gonna have to take a deeper look into the Rinne Tensei jutsu. The only jutsu in the Naruto series that can truly revive a dead person without any strings attached, like the Edo Tensei for example. It's not a real resurrection, it's just a husk, a zombie that you control. So don't you guys think it's very weird that Madara comes back with the Rinne Tensei exactly where his Edo Tensei body was? Because if you look back at the Pain arc, when Nagato used the Rinne Tensei to revive essentially the entire Leaf Village, the dead souls floated back to their original bodies in the middle of the wreckage of the Leaf Village. We don't know where Madara's real body was, but we know that Madara's Edo Tensei body certainly wasn't his original body, because in order for anybody to perform the Edo Tensei, you need a sacrifice, somebody that is going to die as you use that person's body to create the undead zombie. Like, the sacrifice is still alive when you cast the Edo Tensei jutsu, but the person dies once the jutsu is completed. So technically, Madara's Edo body wasn't his body, it was somebody else's, whoever it was, like a random ninja that Kabuto used as a sacrifice, surrounded by the Edo Tensei ash that took Madara's form and also gave him the powers that Madara used to have, because it binds Madara's soul in the impure world, which is the material realm in the Naruto series, and therefore the Edo Tensei means impure reincarnation, but Madara's soul is bound to that corpse, and the ashes around it reproduce Madara's form, and because his soul is attached to it, it gives Madara's powers, just like any other Edo Tensei. But if you're using the Rinne Tensei, what would make more sense would be for Madara's soul to leap out of his Edo Tensei body, leaving the sacrifice behind, just like whenever an Edo Tensei is dispelled, we see several of them during Itachi's undoing of the jutsu, and then Madara's soul leaps back to his old dead body. But instead, Madara comes back young, without eyes, and he simply takes the place of his old Edo Tensei body? So why the hell does that happen this way? Well, and this is a theory more than anything, but it has to do with a difference of casting of the Rinne Tensei jutsu. When Nagato revived half the Leaf Village in the Pain arc, those people had died very recently, meaning that their souls hadn't yet reached the Pure Lands, which is heaven essentially in the Naruto series. So it was much easier to pull them back to their bodies with the Rinne Tensei jutsu, and that's why he could bring everyone back essentially. Nagato even says, before he cast the jutsu, well, because they died pretty recently here in the Leaf Village, I may be able to bring everybody back with the jutsu, and that's what he does. And the souls go back to their original bodies. But for Madara's case, when Obito was reviving one single person that was dead a long time, you can actually apply a different form of the Rinne Tensei jutsu, one that you cannot use to revive a load of people, but you can revive one single person, whoever you want. As long as you know who that person was, I suppose. There's that limitation, because otherwise in theory you could bring back the Sage of Six Paths. That would be kind of weird. And because you're focusing the entire power of the eye and the power of the Rinne Tensei jutsu itself into one single individual, the resurrection can be quote-unquote much more powerful. You don't need the original body because the jutsu itself is going to create a new body of your choosing, and that's why Madara comes back much younger, not the old decrepit man that died in the cave. Because obviously Black Zetsu would want Madara to be in his peak condition, and because you are creating a body from scratch, you can pick and choose where the body is going to be whenever you cast the jutsu. And so Black Zetsu decided that Madara's Rinne body would be exactly where his Edo body was, just for the sake of convenience. Madara was already fighting against the Alliance. Why would he want to be revived somewhere else? Because he can just stomp the Alliance, get all the tail beasts over there. They're very close by, so there's no need to use the Rinne Tensei somewhere else. And maybe it was even easier for Obito / Black Zetsu to perform the Rinne Tensei Tensei where Madara was there and revive the Rinne body where the Edo body used to be, because Madara's soul is already there in the Edo body. So the soul's not gonna have to swap places or anything, you're just changing the body up. So this version of the Rinne Tensei will work much more like a creation of all things type of jutsu that Hagoromo possessed. You can alter reality using the power of your Rinnegan. So essentially, the Edo Tensei body ceases to exist. The sacrificial corpse that was used to revive Madara as an Edo also ceases to exist, and the real body of Madara Uchiha, or at least a new version of that body, is created there, a body of flesh and blood. And because you are just reviving one body, you don't have to revive the entire Leaf Village, for example. You can pull a soul out of the Pure Lands that was dead for a long time. They don't have to be lingering around still waiting to go to the Pure Lands like Nagato did in the Pain arc. And we can see evidence of that because Obito intended on bringing every single person that died in the 4th Great Ninja War before Black Zetsu stopped him and brought Madara instead. And they had all died at most 2 days ago, so that time you have to bring people back easier with Rinne Tensei is 2 days or a little bit more. But regardless, it doesn't work, and Madara is revived with a new body, but a real one this time. However, this still does not answer the question, why doesn't Madara get the Rinnegan back? Why do his Edo Rinnegan eyes turn into dust and he remains blind until he gets his eyes? Well, it would be kinda strange if Madara just got his Rinnegan back in his real body, wouldn't it? Because we know that the Edo Tensei Rinnegan eyes were quote-unquote copies of the real thing. They mimicked the powers of the Rinnegan, but there were things they couldn't do, such as summoning the Ghetto Mazo. That's why when Madara actually summons the Ghetto Mazo, the tail beasts are surprised because they're like, oh my god, he wasn't supposed to do that with the Edo Tensei Rinnegan. And then they realize, oh no, this guy is alive now. Oh, this is bad. And another very important ability he couldn't use as an Edo Tensei was Limbo, which, if he had access to as an Edo Tensei, he would have bodied the entire alliance very easily, because nobody could sense Limbo up until Naruto and Sasuke get their new powers from Hagoromo himself, which allows Sasuke to see Limbo and Naruto to sense it. So obviously there is a difference between the Edo Tensei Rinnegan and the real Rinnegan. As a matter of fact, this difference remains for every single type of dojutsu when it comes to an Edo version and the real version, because for example, Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan when he returns as an Edo Tensei are not his real eyes, because obviously Itachi's real eyes were in Sasuke's sockets, which he used to awaken the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. So imagine if Itachi is Edo Tensei and all of a sudden Sasuke's eyes are teleported out of his sockets back to the Edo Tensei. Obviously the Edo Tensei eyes are not real. They are copies, just like the Edo Tensei body is a copy. A good copy, but still an imperfect copy of the real person. But obviously, when you are brought back by the Rinne Tensei, you become a living creature. And the interesting thing was that Madara was brought back by Rinne Tensei by his own Rinnegan. It's Madara's Rinnegan that is in Obito's socket all along. And we've known that since Obito went to the Mist Village to grab Nagato's Rinnegan, he had the fight against Konan. That's when he reveals that Nagato's Rinnegan was never really his. It was Madara's. So it would just be really strange if Madara was revived with the Rinnegan, because his real Rinnegan were elsewhere. One of them was even used to bring Madara back. So if Madara was to be revived with the Rinnegan implanted on his eyes, one of two things would have to happen. Number one, 2 Rinnegan are spontaneously created alongside Madara's body, meaning that the total number of Rinnegan in the world would become 4 instead of 2 at that point, because Sasuke hadn't yet awakened his Rinnegan. Or number 2, the Rinnegan would teleport to Madara's eye sockets. So immediately after Obito/Black Zetsu used the Rinne Tensei, his Rinnegan would disappear and show up inside of Madara's sockets, alongside the other Rinnegan that was hidden by Obito before the war started. And yes, the Rinne Tensei jutsu is extremely powerful. It can create a new Madara from scratch, but it is reasonable to assume that it cannot create another Rinnegan, because the steps you have to take in order for you to awaken a Rinnegan are insane. Well, the first thing you have to be is a reincarnation of Indra himself, and you have to get chakra from an Ashura reincarnation into your body so that the chakras will mingle, and your eternal Mangekyo Sharingan will depict a Rinnegan eventually, because it takes a long time for Madara to awaken his. Only just before he dies, when he's like 2050 years old, is when Madara awakens his Rinnegan, and it is very much implied you can only awaken the Rinnegan in a very near-death situation. Madara awakens it just before he dies of old age, he only sustains himself through the Geto-Mazo connection, and Sasuke only awakens the Rinnegan, even though Hagoromo kind of gave it to him, as he was about to die from Madara's stab wound. And obviously, you need the chakra from a reincarnation of Ashura, otherwise it's simply impossible for you to awaken it. It is reasonable to assume that something so specific and so powerful wouldn't be able to be replicated with the Rinne Tensei jutsu. But then you may ask, well, I guess you couldn't recreate the Rinnegan with the Rinne Tensei, but what about just recreating Madara's base Sharingan, or his Mangekyo, or his Eternal Mangekyo as he's getting Rinne Tensei? Because even though it's not the Rinnegan, it's much better for Madara to have eyes in that situation, right? He still has to fight a lot of people, and when he gets access to his Rinnegan again, he can just swap eyes. It's really easy to do it in the Naruto series, especially when you have Hashirama cells, you can just heal you right back up and it's good. I mean, Madara literally does that when he gets Kakashi's Mangekyo to Kamui himself, and once in the Kamui dimension, he swaps Kakashi's Mangekyo in his socket with his own Rinnegan that was an Obito socket, so he just kind of swaps eyes. He could simply do that with his theoretical Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan that was recreated with Rinne Tensei with his real Rinnegan. And if you're worrying, oh my god, but nobody else can get access to my Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan because it's too powerful, we'll just crush the eye and destroy it. You're not gonna use it anymore, so it's fine. And even if you may argue, well, maybe you can't bring back the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan because that requires somebody else's Mangekyo in order for you to awaken the Eternal Light, so the Rinne Tensei isn't capable of producing something as powerful as that, the base Sharingan at least seems very reasonable, because that's something Madara had when he was alive, well, before he got the EMS at least. And you may say, oh, it doesn't matter, man. Madara's gonna get his Rinnegan back anyway, but that's not really the case. Madara was very keen on getting Sasuke's Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan in his sockets when he realized it was a Choku Tomoe. Now, maybe he only says that because he's acknowledging Sasuke's power and the prowess in his eyes, but it indicates Madara wanted to have eyes in that situation, so I would assume a base Sharingan would be better than nothing. Like, Madara was not imposing difficulties on himself, or Black Zetsu was not imposing difficulties on Madara just because, so that would be a challenge. There had to be a reason why he couldn't bring Madara back with base Sharingan at least. And things get even weirder when we realize that Madara was brought back with Rinne Tensei with Hashirama's face on his chest. Because we know that Hashirama's face was put into the Edo Tensei version of Madara by Kabuto. He enhanced Madara's Edo Tensei. Now, we also know that back when Madara was alive, he implanted a piece of Hashirama's flesh on his chest as well. But we simply don't know if he had that much Hashirama in him when he was alive. But because he still had that as an Edo Tensei, it's likely that the Rinne Tensei, because he was used at the exact same location as the Edo Tensei body was, could have taken advantage of those Hashirama cells that were hosted in Madara's Edo body and just transfer them over to the Rinne body. After all, the jutsu is warping reality. We can just use the Hashirama cells to our advantage here, can't we? One more reason as to why Black Zetsu would revive Madara with Rinne where the Edo body was. But that still doesn't answer the question. Why doesn't he just bring Madara back with a base Sharingan? If we've established that bringing him back with a Rinnegan is impossible due to the difficulty of you just creating a Rinnegan, and another Rinnegan creating a new Rinnegan would be kind of weird, but the base Sharingan doesn't seem that weird to me if it's possible to bring Madara back with Hashirama cells and all. Well, the reason is, Madara's Rinnegan were still around. They still existed in the world. His eyes, Madara's original eyes, still existed in this world. And they weren't rotting like Madara's real body back in the day. He was probably rotting in that cave. No, they are fully functional eyes that can still be used. And therefore, that piece of Madara's body cannot be replaced with the Rinne Tensei Jutsu if Madara wants to use the Rinnegan afterwards, which he obviously wants to. So because those Rinnegan were Madara's real eyes when he was alive, and because they are Rinnegan eyes, they cannot be just recreated by Rinne Tensei, you cannot simply put new eyes in Madara's sockets out of nowhere, because his eyes are still around, if that makes sense. Even if you want to bring Madara back with lower tier eyes, his real eyes will not allow that to happen because you cannot create something that already exists. And then you may say, well, but technically Madara's real body still exists, it's just rotting somewhere. And that is true. However, because those two Rinnegan are the only remaining parts of that body, and they will still be used, they are still connected to Madara's soul in a way, and therefore the Rinne Tensei cannot reproduce Madara's eyes in his new body, even if he can make the new Hashirama cells with Hashirama's face there. So Madara's gonna have to go and get both of his Rinnegan if he wants to cast the Infinite Tsukiyomi. And from an out-of-universe perspective, Madara having to fight to get his Rinnegan back, also showing different stages of Madara's strength, is an amazing storytelling tool to slowly increase the tension. Oh god, Madara just got a new power-up. Oh, he's got another Rinnegan now. What's going to happen? Until eventually he casts Infinite Tsukiyomi and reaches his full power. Obviously what happened afterwards with Black Zetsu and Kage, that's not canon, so it never existed. But you have to admit that it's really cool to see Madara shirtless, bleeding, fighting against all-tail beasts without eyes. Watch this other video right here for more cool Naruto content. Subscribe and ring those notifications if you haven't already. This really helps me out and it helps you out too to get new videos. Like the video as well if you enjoyed it or if you learned something new. And thank you so much for watching.